Dear students, today I am going to explain a very important term, that is pathetic fallacy. When I meet to my classes and explain some important poems, while critically analyzing the poem, I tell my students some important figures of speech. Very often I found that most of the students are not able to understand the basic concepts of some important figures of speech. So what I thought that let me explain some important figures of speech. So one term which I have taken today is pathetic fallacy. Now I have taken this paper in my hand in order to give you some examples, some lines from the various poems, so that you can better understand the concept. Now, pathetic fallacy is a literary device, is a figure of speech where the writer tries to attribute the human feelings and emotions to objects of nature. Now, so attributing human qualities and emotions to inanimate objects of nature is basically pathetic fallacy. Now, when you look at the word pathetic, you may think for some time that the word pathetic means, miserable, but it does not anyway relate to the word, miserable. So the basic meaning of pathetic fallacy is attributing human qualities and emotions to inanimate objects of nature. For example, if I say, scolding winds, or if I say threatening clouds, or if I say dancing leaves or smiling skies, so I am attributing human qualities and emotions to the objects of nature. Now, this term was first used by John Ruskin in a derogatory sense in his in volume 3 of his book Modern Painters, which was published in 1856. Now he used this term to attack the sentimentality that was very common in the late 18th century, especially in the writings of Robert Burns, William Blake, William Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats. Now, as I have just told you that, the term was used in derogatory sense. The two terms, that is, pathetic and fallacy, though in due course of time they have, the meaning got changed. Now, in his day, the word pathetic meant anything pertaining to emotion, while fallacy meant falseness. The original meaning of pathetic fallacy was simply emotional falseness. But as I have just told you that the meaning got shifted actually with the passage of time, and now the term pathetic fallacy means attributing human qualities and emotions to inanimate objects of nature. Now, you may also think for some time that it is more or less personification, because personification is also, giving lifeless objects, life. For example, when you say, let not ambition mock their useful toil, or opportunity knocks at the door but once. So there is some basic difference between personification and pathetic fallacy. So you should not get confused with this. Now, these two terms, they differ in their functions. Pathetic fallacy, no doubt, is a kind of personification that gives human emotions to inanimate objects, which I have just told you. For example, in Abhigaan Shakuntalam, when Shakuntala left the forest and going out, actually the trees started shedding leaves. That was like the trees started weeping. So pathetic fallacy involves attribution of emotions to non-human things, while personification involves the attribution of any human quality or action. Now, you see, So the basic meaning is that when we attribute emotions to the objects of nature, then it becomes the example of pathetic fallacy. One example which I saw, I mean, it seems to me very significant. If the sentence is, the somber clouds darkened our mood. The somber cloud darkened our mood. So this is a pathetic fallacy, because human attributes are given to inanimate object of nature reflecting the mood. But if I say, for example, the sparrow talked to us, it's a personification, because inanimate objects of nature, the sparrow is given the human quality of, talking. Now, I have selected some lines from the different, texts in order to explain my point. There is one poem by John Keats, that is Ode to Melancholy, famous ode by. So he used the device of pathetic fallacy. Few lines which I have written here. The lines are: but when the melancholy fit shall fall, sudden from heaven like a weeping cloud. Now the word weeping cloud is an example of pathetic fallacy, because human attributes are applied to objects of nature, because the clouds are weeping. Or William Wordsworth, in the poem I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, again is an example of pathetic fallacy. Now one example which you can take from Shakespeare's play Macbeth. Now the ominous or the dark mood of Macbeth and Banquo is reflected in the natural occurrences in Act 1, Scene 3. Now there is a thunder as the witches appear. Then Macbeth enters the area where the witches are. And the statement, what does he say? He says, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." So this again becomes an example of, pathetic fallacy. Now there is a famous a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and the poem is Maud. In Maud, he has beautifully used pathetic fallacy. Now look at the example which I am going to give you. Here, see how human qualities are given to the objects of nature. The emotions. The lines from Maud are: there has fallen a splendid tear from the passion flower at the gate. She's coming, my dove, my dear. She's coming, my life, my fate. The red rose cries, she's near, and the white rose weeps, she's late. The larkspur listens, I hear, and the lily whispers, I wait. Now look at whispering of lily, weeping of rose, crying of rose, how human emotions are given to the objects of nature. Now there is another poem by Robert Browning that is called Porphyria's Lover. One of the best examples, a dramatic monologue of Browning. The poet has used a pathetic fallacy, and a few lines I am going to quote. The sullen wind was soon awake. It tore the elm tops down for spite, and did its worst to vex the lake. So here the wind becomes, sullen. So human attributes are given to the objects of nature. So, in a simple way, pathetic fallacy is attributing human emotions to the objects of nature. And if you want to, find some other examples, you will see, you just read the pastoral elegies. For example, read Adonais by P.B. Shelley, where he laments on the death of John Keats. So in pastoral elegies, we find many examples of, pathetic fallacies. Thank you very much.